Here's the secret commercial property strategy that I'm personally using and nobody wants you to know about it. There's two types of commercial valuations. Standard commercial valuation where they just value the commercial asset, and there is a type of commercial valuation called a going concern valuation where they value the asset itself and the business that operates out of that asset. Let me explain. If I use my wedding venue as the example, we have an asset, let's say it's worth $2.5 million. That asset is just simply valued based on the asset itself. If they use comparable sales that are surrounding that property, and they essentially will only increase the value of that asset if the rent that the operator out of that asset is paying slightly increases, or assets around it sell, and obviously that increases the value of the property. You have very little to no control over the increase in the standard commercial asset. So you have very little control over how much you can increase the value of the asset. Sure, you can increase the rent. Sure, you can do some capital improvements on that asset and make it look prettier. But by and large, you can't really control an increase. So over time, to get to say a $5 million valuation, it'd take a very, very long time. This is the simple strategy and it's the silly strategy. The strategy that I use is the going concern strategy, where you can have dramatic increases and you can turn this $2.5 million to $7.5 million in as little time as 24 months. Let me explain. So let's use the same $2.5 million asset. And let's say out of that asset, we are running a wedding business. That wedding business does say $1.25 million a year in revenue. Let's assume that over a period of time, 12 months, it spits off $500,000 of net profit, and there's $750,000 of cost to be able to operate the venue. This net profit here can essentially be calculated on a cap rate. What that means is, let's assume it's a 10% cap rate. So this adds potentially $5 million of valuation to the asset. So now not only do you have a $2.5 million real estate asset, you've also now got an increased value of $5 million, because these two things get put together because you've got a business operating out of there doing really good profits, and you've got the value of the asset together. So now on that same asset that didn't have a business before, the asset can be worth $7.5 million. And this valuation methodology is exactly how they value things like pubs. Pubs don't just get valued based on the value of the asset. A pub gets valued based on the value of the asset plus the enterprise that is operating out of that asset, which means you have full control. So let's assume, same thing, $2.5 million asset. I used a $500,000 profit before. And let's say over time, the business continues to grow and that profit goes from $500,000 to $1.5 million. And again, it operates at a 10% cap rate. Now you've added $15 million worth of value to the asset plus the existing $2.5 million, which means you've now got an asset worth $17.5 million if you know how to operate the business inside of it. And this is where these huge upsides happen in things like venues and pubs. Someone buys a dilapidated venue that's doing really poorly, probably losing money. They turn it around. They dramatically increase the revenue and the profit of that operation. It still operates out of the same real estate, but then they sell it for 3 or 4 or 5 times the amount, because now they're selling not just the real estate, but also the business that operates out of that real estate. So it's way more valuable. And this is the right type of commercial strategy if you understand how to operate the businesses out of it. So the key is you're not just waiting on the real estate to grow, you can grow the business inside of that real estate. And that way you can get a 10 or 20x return on your money if you do it correctly.